And speak to cancer survivor and former Good Morning America host Joan Lunden and Steve Alperin, the Chief Executive of advice platform Survivor Net. Hello to you both. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. I want to come on to the potential good news in a moment, but we've had figures out here in the UK from Cancer Research UK today that some 40,000 fewer people started cancer treatment in 2020. Cancer hasn't gone away, Joan, by any stretch, has it? So how concerning is it that those diagnoses are being missed and treatment delayed?
You know, Sarah, I was just interviewing a doctor yesterday who said to me that they expect this huge onslaught of late diagnoses because people are so reluctant to go into a medical facility. And we know how important early diagnosis is in breast cancer, like I had, or certainly in skin cancer. If you're not getting your colonoscopy and your annual skin check and your annual gynecological checkup and your mammogram, you could be putting yourself in great danger. So it's important that everyone realizes that these medical centers have been made safe for us now, and you need to go in and have those checkups.
Yeah, and Steve, getting a diagnosis at any time is incredibly distressing, but particularly now that the fear is even more exaggerated. What do users of your platform say, and what advice are you able to give them?
Thanks so much for having us on, Sarah. There are millions of people who come to us who are even more afraid and more anxious about what they might find. And so what we try to do is take the information and decrease that anxiety just a little bit. It is safe to go get a mammogram. There are many tens of thousands of people every day in each city going to have these procedures. So the number one thing is go get checked. You don't want to wait. If something's wrong, please go. The people who are doing this stuff now want to be safe, and it can be done very safely. That's the number one message for prevention, which is still the most powerful tool we have against cancer, prevention and early screening.
Yeah, really important messages there. Joan, one of the positives that has come out of this pandemic, though, is the power of science. And when the global community comes together, we have seen huge acceleration in scientific breakthroughs. Could we see that benefiting the world of cancer and helping cancer patients?
Well, amazingly, a lot of the research that's been done and the breakthroughs that we've seen in the treatment of COVID are actually turning out to be very helpful in the treatment for cancer. But, just since my diagnosis, which was only about 6 years ago, there have been so many advancements. There was no treatment at all for the kind of cancer, no targeted treatment for triple negative cancer, which I had. And now there are. Immunotherapy, I mean, that has been the game changer. And it used to be that, if a woman had metastatic breast cancer, that was really a death sentence. And we now are learning how to, and the goal, of course, is to make it a manageable chronic illness. And so it's really important, all the millions of dollars that have gone into breast cancer research. But I want to just talk about some of the basics. If do your self-exams, know your own normal so that if anything seems awry, you get that checked right away. You need to be a self-advocate today, whether it's trying to get a COVID vaccination or whether it's trying to get a second opinion. And when you're facing a life-threatening disease such as cancer, don't be reluctant to get a second opinion. Take somebody with you for those first early appointments where big decisions are made about treatment. Women, you need to understand what your breast density is. I didn't know anything about this. I got a clean 3D mammogram the day of my diagnosis. And then I had an ultrasound and found out I had stage 2 triple negative breast cancer. Dense tissue shows up white on a mammogram, and so does cancer. It's very easy to miss a cancer diagnosis. So if you don't know what your breast density is and you get mammograms, you call up that radiation clinic that you went to and ask if you have very dense tissue, because it's really important to know. You need to know your family history. That's so important. And we still live in a time when a lot of parents never really talked about it. If they had cancer, they might have been very secret about it. And you need to kind of get through that. But at the same time, If you never had any family history like me and you thought, well, it's not going to happen to me, only less than 15% of women diagnosed with breast cancer ever had a family history.
Yeah, lots of questions to be asked, lots of research to be done, and of course, checking yourself as well. Steve, we've talked a lot about the mRNA technology over recent months, something many of us would not have heard of before, but is now playing a huge part in our lives in the rollout of the Pfizer vaccine, for example. That technology, is there a chance that that could be used in the fight against cancers in the future?
That company with two, I believe, Turkish emigres to Germany was originally a cancer company. So I think, to put it in perspective, number one, on World Cancer Day, you have to acknowledge the human toll is still extraordinary and extreme. However, we are living through a world historical moment in cancer and in medicine. In the last 8 years, the number of new methods of treating disease has doubled. Before that, for the 100-year history of modern science, there might have been 10 or 15 methods. In the last 10 years, including mRNA, we have doubled that. So if you think about the moment of these pathways to attack disease, there is a true industrial revolution. That's not my term. The people leading it have come up with that term in biotech. And so I think the opportunity for humanity, if you look at 15 of the top 20 pharma companies globally, including some extraordinary UK companies, are betting their financial future. I know somebody who last Friday was on a call for investors organized by Number 10, which the Prime Minister attended, and it was all about how in the UK can we take the extraordinary life science cluster of academics and cluster of companies and accelerate it so that this moment can be transformed. I'll leave you with one way to look at it. In cancer specifically, in the US, we had a president called Richard Nixon. He declared war on cancer 50 years ago. Something like $1 trillion of money and 200 medicines, mostly chemotherapies. In the last 7 or 8 years, there have been 50 to 60 new medicines. So the curve is like that, but it's not good enough. Right now, what's happening in the great universities in the world, in the great pharma companies, they're trying to figure out the next answers. Why doesn't immunotherapy work for some people? How can we use mRNA? How can we speed up drug development with AI? And so the moment is extraordinary. You see it in the public health data in the UK. There's a 20-year period with a 15% decline in death. In the US, for the first time in history, treatment is making a difference for cancer mortality rather than prevention. And so the short form is, it's an incredible positive moment.
Yeah, some really potentially positive news on the horizon. Joan, I just wanted to get your final thoughts. I know you spend a lot of time advising and guiding women as they get a cancer diagnosis from your own personal experience. And to get a diagnosis now at a point when fears are exacerbated, fears about access to treatment, fears about catching COVID when your immune system is compromised, but when those support networks that we would normally rely on, that access to friends and family, are taken away from us, what can women do, and how do you advise them to get through the most difficult of times?
Well, I do think a support network is really important, right in the beginning. You put together your group of doctors, because it's just not one doctor that treats you when you're battling cancer. And this is not the time to say, I'm type A woman and I can do this by myself, which I was inclined. I was very happy, though, that my family said, oh, no, we're going to be here to support you. But it's also important to make sure you're getting the right information. And we're living in a time of just unimaginable disinformation and misinformation, which can be so dangerous when it comes to our health. That's the reason why I, was happy when survivor.net called me. Steve is the founder of it. And because I knew it was a reliable platform that was well researched, that was in constant contact with doctors. So be very careful where you get your information. At the same time, ask a lot of questions, because everything you just heard from Steve, so many new treatments are coming down the pike. When I was diagnosed, there was a brand new treatment available, and I chose to take it. And I think that's, one of the reasons why I did so well.
Yeah.
So it's really been, we're not just doing standard of care anymore. They really are doing personalized care for each person. So that's really a good thing about the change in cancer care recently.